The proclaimed justice of the world government is one of the biggest hypocrisies I have ever witnessed in any story. Justice is one of the most important and influential themes in One Piece that shapes the flow of events and works as a driver for many influential characters. But similar to our world, justice in One Piece is an issue of much controversy and debate. So, what actually is justice in the world of One Piece, and why does it appear so hypocritical in our perception? In its essence, justice means nothing more than treating others fair and just. Even though this statement does not imply if an action is positive or negative, in the broader sense, justice is often associated with the punishment of someone who did something wrong. The idea behind this is basically an eye for an eye mentality. Someone who committed a crime should be punished in a way that in its extent is at least equal to that crime. This of course in its hardest form means that, for example, someone who committed a murder should be punished by death as well. At this point already, you will have your own view on this matter clearly in mind. You might agree with this way of thinking, or you might see it as very flawed. Fact is, everyone has their own very distinct sense of what justice means and how it should be executed. Same as in reality, justice in One Piece is different for every individual. The former Marine Admiral Kizaru states that justice changes its shape depending on where you stand. So, where in the world you live, what group you belong to, how you grew up, and who you are as a person, all influences your view on justice. Now, when you hear about justice in One Piece, the very first thing you will probably associate with this term are the Marines. Justice is their ultimate motto that they use as a vindication for their actions and even emblazoned on their officers' coats. The initial idea behind this is pretty straightforward. The Marines are the good ones that protect the world from the pirates and other criminals who are, the bad guys. But since the heroes of our stories are pirates, we soon discover that the world is not simply black and white. Early on in the story, Luffy liberates Zoro from the hands of Captain Morgan. To the surprise of everyone, the Marines stationed at the base all thanked Luffy for liberating them as well from the tyranny of their captain. And with that, Oda showed us from pretty early on in the story that his world is morally grey. The lines between good and bad are very fluent, not only in the groups like the pirates or the Marines, but often also in individuals themselves. A great example for this is Robin, who is capable of immoral and violent behavior and is also introduced as an antagonist to Luffy and his crew. Only after learning her story and her unexpected joining of the crew do we start to see her as a person with a good heart. And over time, Robin has become one of the most popular and loved characters in One Piece. This concept is what makes the characters in the story so incredibly complex and interesting. Another story that has built its success on this way of character design as well is Game of Thrones, where there is no pure good or evil in the characters and where justice is also presented as a concept that does not have a clear definition. Now, when we look back at One Piece, many of the pirates actually fit in this black and white mentality way of thinking, since they truly are nothing more than criminals. But you have to keep in mind that there are at least as many who turn towards the pirate life for very different reasons. A bad standard of living, revenge, a dream, or simply the wish for freedom are the motivations for many pirates, including the Straw Hats. And along the road, we meet many people who would be considered nothing more than criminals in the eye of the world government that we actually get to know as the good guys. This includes pirates, outcasts, and the revolutionaries. And they all have their own sense of justice and in turn see the world government and the world nobles as the real bad and real unjust side. Now as stated, also inside of the Marines the sense of justice varies immensely. Oda actually made it a point of giving each of the original 3 admirals a different philosophy on justice that each of them follows. Sakazuki, better known as Akainu, follows the idea of absolute justice that is shared by many in the Marines. Absolute justice takes the idea of justice to a very harsh extreme, where anyone who falls under the category of a criminal is prosecuted, regardless of what they really did. If you are a pirate, you are guilty, regardless of any good you did or to what degree you actually committed any crimes. And even if you are a regular citizen that supports or helps a pirate in any way, you are considered guilty as well. In order to bring someone who's guilty to justice, according to Akainu, anything is allowed in the name of absolute justice, since it doesn't allow any grey zones. What this means in reality can be seen when Akainu orders the killing of an entire ship of innocent civilians on Ohara, simply because one of the scholars of the island could have been hiding in there. The second admiral is Borsalino, also known as Kizaru, who follows the motto of unclear justice. As the name suggests, Kizaru's view on justice is not very clear. On the one hand, he often refrains from taking action simply because it seems inconvenient to him, while on the other hand, he is very merciless and indifferent once he actually takes action. To him, justice is more of a duty that he sees as a burden and that can be avoided at some times but has to be complied with at others. Very different to that is Aokiji. Aokiji follows a lazy justice. While the name might suggest something similar to Kizaru's mindset, Aokiji is actually the only of the three who actually takes circumstances and individual situations into account when passing judgment. He decided to let Robin go from Ohara and was happy to see her becoming part of the Straw Hat crew. By showing mercy, compassion and respect towards enemies that have earned it in his eyes, inevitably he eventually clashed with Akainu due to their incredibly different views on justice. These different ideas of justice show just how inhomogeneous even the Marines are. So, why is the concept of justice that the world government proclaims for themselves so hypocritical? The answer to that lies in the way that this so-called justice is executed in the One Piece world. The failure to comply with the idea of justice by the different law enforcement factions of the government is a common theme in the story. In the end, their actions are often considered as equally bad or even worse than those of the pirates they actually target, trampling on the rights and needs of civilians in order to pursue their agenda. Such actions by the Marines include everything from corrupt officers like Morgan to the killing of civilians on Ohara by Akainu. One of the most gruesome acts committed by the Marines in the story was the slaughter of numerous children and women in the search for Roger's child. The killing of innocents justified by the danger of a baby of a criminal? That doesn't really sound like any justice to me. Another faction executing justice in the name of the world government are the Cypherpole agencies. Rob Lucci is famously and repeatedly shown to only embrace justice as a form of vindication for living out his bloodlust and cruelty. He puts murder and pain before capture and pushes the boundaries of bringing people to justice towards cold-blooded murder. Despite their views that all pirates are evil, the world government also introduced the system of the warlords. These pirates are pardoned for all their past crimes and those that their crewmates committed, and are to a certain extent even allowed to keep committing more. The government is, so to speak, willing to overlook certain things in order to gain more control and maintain their hold on society's faith in the strength of justice. The law system itself is down to its core as far from just as it's possible. Judges exist in the One Piece world, but as we saw with Robin's trial, they are only for show and hold no real chance for a fair process. As a part of that, the prison of Impel Down is designed to prevent any captives from leaving the place alive. Even those without a life sentence die in prison from a systematic torture they are sentenced to, something that the jailers find great pleasure in doing. The whole place goes against the very idea of a real prison, keeping criminals with a life sentence away from society and making those who did not fit to be reintegrated into society for a second chance. Only in One Piece, the system does really not allow any second chances. But the final and maybe worst argument for the hypocrisy of the world government is the concept of the world nobles. The fact that this elite group is accepted from any moral judgment and even practice active slavery goes in its essence against the very idea of justice itself, since you cannot simply exclude someone from this idea. The world nobles are allowed to murder, rape, or anything they please without being part of Akainu's absolute justice. Additionally, by owning most of the wealth in the world, they are also the reason many people resort to the life of a pirate in the first place. So, how can it be that despite all those atrocities committed by all sides, the Marines are perceived as righteous and good, while the pirates and revolutionaries are generally seen as bad and cruel? The best answer to this question might come from one of the last people you would expect. Don Quixote do Flamingo has the following words regarding justice. Pirates are evil, the Marines are righteous. These terms have always changed throughout the course of history. Kids who have never seen peace and kids who have never seen war have different values. Those who stand at the top determine what's wrong and what's right. This very place is neutral ground. And justice will prevail, you say? But of course it will. Whoever wins this war becomes justice. So, in the world of One Piece, the world government has been in power since the Void Century, and therefore shaped the views on who and what is right for centuries. Being nothing else than an undemocratic regime with an unknown but nonetheless single ruler and a royal class that is free from any moral or legal boundaries, justice against a proclaimed enemy is nothing more than a tool of propaganda that hides the injustice of the system. Since this regime has been in existence for such a long time, this belief of the government being the ultimate good and just entity in the world has sunk in with large parts of the population that actually carries this system. So you might wonder, what can be done about this? And the simple answer to that is that in essence this is what Luffy's journey is going to be all about in the end. Because even though the revolutionaries are invading Marijora right now, we can assume that the final role of liberating the world will be fulfilled by Luffy, since his ultimate goal is to be free. So, now I'm incredibly curious about what you guys think about the concept of justice in One Piece. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked this video, leave me a thumbs up and please subscribe to my channel to be notified for any future content of mine. I hope to see you guys around next time, and until then, have a great week.